Greetings. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So I just didn't feel like being on camera today, and I wanted to try doing a more podcast style for this video. So I spent most of the afternoon contemplating and running through some of my old journals, and I want to talk about a very interesting topic that could potentially lead you to your own meditation on this question: why do I do magic? Also, why do I practice Thelema specifically? So, to begin, introspection is a vital tool for the magician. I hope that this recording leads listeners to self-searching of their own, as it has to me in writing it out. When I had students, I asked, after a long enough period of time in study and practice, why are you doing this? Why do you want to practice magic, and even more so, why Thelema? I asked because I could clearly see they were lost. For some of these students, I received generic answers such as, I'm doing magic to find my true will, and from others they remained silent with no response. That was fine for the first few months, but after years had gone by, I found it a very unsatisfactory answer. If I had asked them any number of follow-up questions from, what is true will, or why do you want to know your true will, they'd have looked at me stupefied or else answered, I don't know. For full disclosure, as a result of trying to teach one-on-one in the same way as my late teacher, I discovered that I am not as patient working with others as I need to be for such an endeavor. Nor is guiding others in this way for me at this time. Maybe it was simply bad matches in students with myself, but based on factors I may talk about at a later time, I was getting frustrated and was not happy in this role. While I have knowledge I wish to pass on, and a strong desire to help others, I must do so in another way, and thus this channel. At least I now know this, and I am not wasting their time or my own. I digress. Now, while we don't always have clear goals, and sometimes magic can help us find out enough about ourselves to determine what we need to do at a certain point, I believe, in order to walk the path safely, one needs to know their destination and truly understand their tradition. On the path of initiation in magic, the ego will often rebel, and there is a definite breaking of the aspirant that occurs. When they do not understand this process and then start fighting it and flailing, only too many times have I seen various forms of psychosis ensue. Then you run the possibility of getting a person claiming adepthood with serious entitlement issues. But in asking them, I myself began to reflect on why I am doing this. Why am I practicing magic? And out of all the various traditions, why did I land on and choose Thelema? Why do I continue to identify as a Thelemite? Really quick, almost as an afterthought, I just want to mention, in the introduction to Magic in Theory and Practice, Crowley gives a really amazing analysis on what magic is and how every act of will, everything you do with intent to cause change, is an act of magic. Having a conversation, me making this video, doing a ritual for a specific purpose, is an act of magic when it causes change, and when that change has a willed intent behind it. So if you haven't read Magic in Theory and Practice, I'm not going into that whole argument and philosophical debate that Crowley has written really beautifully as an introduction to that book. You could go read that yourself. For this video, I want to answer this question just more on a personal note, barring, in the course of my experiments and my rituals, I've come to have people in my life and experience with angels, deities, spirits, some of which are almost as tangible and as close to me as people. Some of these entities, some of these incorporeal entities are indeed closer to me than some people I've met in life. So, barring the whole what is magic and that you can't help but do it argument that Crowley makes, which I won't get into in this video, I'm just going to be sharing very personal internal reflections on why I do magic and what about Thelema has really connected with me. To answer this question, I'll start by sharing the circumstances that led me to magic. At first, I stumbled onto it and had some visions, psychic experiences, and really wanted answers about life. I have this spark in my heart of a seeker and a scientist. I want to know what life is, of what our physical and spiritual existence composed. Of all the mystical and magical accounts of various religions, what experiences are worth pursuing? Which are allegorical and which are fiction? What is this universe? Where is it? And even why is it? A decade ago, I was dealing with chronic drug dependency, depression, and was practically suicidal because I'm transgender and hated myself because of childhood indoctrination. I had a ton of serious baggage and stumbled into the 12-step model, which prompted me to seek a higher power. That idea was compatible with what I was just starting out to do spiritually, so I went along with the process until these parallel paths of occultism and 12-step recovery diverged, proving to be hyperbola lines in space, running parallel for a time until diverging in different directions. I do hope I'm using the right term to describe my experience of doing two things that seem compatible until they suddenly veer off in different directions. In my case, I chose occultism as it was better suited to my goals. So from the start, I was seeking several things. Firstly, to find out about Nuit, without knowing who or what she was, other than having seen her in the sky one night. I was seeking spiritual means to get clean from substances. Later I realized I'd have to come to terms with my identity, that I might find happiness and a sense of being fulfilled. So I began scouring religions, looking for identification with my own psychic phenomena that I'd experienced with various hallucinogenics. I started with the mainstream religions, talking to anyone seriously practicing any religion, and also looking for people that had strange, even spiritual experiences while under the influence of psychedelics. I was reading about Gnosticism, Freemasonry, the mainstream religions, Wicca, and finally in Wicca heard about Thelema. Some couple of years into studying, I finally saw the star card in Crowley's Thoth deck, and seeing a drawing image of Nuit for the first time, I had the notion that I was somehow guided to this tradition, for it was the goddess in my vision that night long ago. This is what led me to the tradition, but why do I stay with it? To begin with, when I see magic, I also see it in a world that is sometimes very dark. Magic and Thelema for me are a light in that darkness, a way to brighten the path for others. Within the Thelema compendium is Liber Oz and the Book of the Law. To me, they are unrivaled as guides to live by. They've given me the guidance and confidence I was missing to be my most authentic self, but also a lens with which I can view the world and begin to make sense of things. I remember the first time I read Crowley's comment on the Book of the Law and hit the passage about being androgynous. I quote, "Equally is it better for the androgyny, the earning, or their feminine counterparts to endure blackmailers, private and public, the terrors of police persecution, the disgust, contempt, and loathing of the vulgar, and the self-torture of suspecting the peculiarity to be a symptom of a degenerate nature, than to wrong the soul by damning it to the hell of abstinence, or by defiling it with the abhorred embraces of antipathetic arms. Every star must calculate its own orbit, all its will, and yet all its necessity. To swerve is ultimately impossible. To seek to swerve is to suffer. The beast 666 ordains by his authority that every man and every woman and every intermediately sexed individual shall be absolutely free to interpret and communicate self by means of any sexual practices soever, whether direct or indirect, rational or symbolic, physiologically, legally, ethically, or religiously approved or no, provided only that all parties to any act are fully aware of all implications and responsibilities thereof, and heartily agree thereto. While I do not agree with everything my prophet has written or mandated, this and many other of his writings have indeed hit home for me. I looked for myself in the holy books of Thelema, running my own experience through the verses and seeking identification and instruction. And in so many ways I have been uplifted, challenged, and pushed into progress. But that is only one reason among many. When I perform ceremonial magic, it is energetic in a way hard to describe. It has given me the insight to banish from my life that which is detrimental to my path, and invoke that which is necessary. I've been given instruction to challenge every thought with its equal and opposite, and in doing so transcend common thought. The discipline of doing magic and yoga is rewarding in ways I will not list for sake of time, but it is powerful. There is a definite means to self-mastery in the long term on this path, and seeing the result in the elders who have utilized Thelema in its full capacity is a really beautiful thing. Thelema and magic have given me the insight in my nature to live up to the highest ideals of character that I need to be in this incarnation. Yes, there is power in practicing magic, but that is a byproduct. I use magic to continue to understand who I am with each passing day. Although it says in Libra L, "Yea, deem not of change, ye shall be as ye are and not other. Therefore the kings of the earth shall be kings forever, the slaves shall serve." Libra L chapter 2 verse 58. On a daily basis the body grows older, the brain gains new insights through experience and contemplation. We speed up in maturity and then slow down when elderly. How we interact with the world indeed changes, and magic continues to yield new tools and means for my spirit to operate my mind and body. Forewarning, I'm not trying to be political in anything following, but in any form of paganism, occultism, or fraternal orders through the ages, there is most usually a vast concern for social affairs, current events, and our world at large. I'll be sharing my views on some of these, and if you do not wish to hear them, you might click off now. So most important for me, Thelema has helped me shape and understand my worldviews. We are at a turning point of technological advances for which we as a species are fully responsible. We are building and creating at a rate never seen by humans before. We are destroying our ecosystem. Species are going rapidly extinct. We treat people from different imaginary borders as if they are a different species from us because they have a different skin color, language, or customs. Bigotry is as prevalent today as ever before, and people blame others constantly for their own failings. The rich are getting richer and not living up to the responsibilities of their wealth. The poor are now even worse off than before, and the holes people find themselves in are becoming almost impossible to climb out of. Scientists tell us our ozone is burning, and we keep pushing off the responsibility to the next people in office and the following generations. Consumerism is worse than ever. We are destroying our natural resources to create garbage products that we don't need and end up double polluting the planet when they rot in a landfill or clog the ocean. There's a ton of plastic in the ocean we do not know how to clean up because it isn't economically feasible to do so, and thus we are destroying the oceans. We are on the verge of facing the repercussion of our actions, and most of us feel powerless about what we can do. I myself feel this way many days, as I have not the financial means it takes to make the impact I desire. Yet despite that, it is the writings of the prophet that I turn to which have helped me pay attention to my surroundings. And while I don't have the answers at all times on how we combat all of this mess that we've made all at once, at the very least I have gained insights to recognize that there are a ton of problems, rather than going through life ignoring all of it as I had before I found Thelema. How too many people go about their lives on autopilot. I know that when there is a mess, the only thing that can be done is to little by little clean it up. If not all at once, then just as much as I can bear each and every day. And if I make a little progress, it will eventually get done. Until then, I'm just cramming more trash into an already dirty home until it becomes uninhabitable. I will leave you with words from the text called Duty, a note on the chief rules of practical conduct to be observed by those who accept the law of Thelema, by Aleister Crowley. I beg everyone, regardless of tradition, to read this at least once and consider well its words in the light of the condition of our planet as it stands today. If you do not identify as a Thelemite, just consider that change needs to happen, and we have little time before our karmic bill comes due. There's a link to the text Duty in the description below. I quote, "The law of Thelema is to be applied unflinchingly to decide every question of conduct. The inherent fitness of anything for any proposed use should be the sole criterion. Apparent and sometimes even real conflict between interests will frequently arise. Such cases are to be decided by the general value of the contending parties in the scale of nature. Thus, a tree has a right to its life, but a man being more than a tree, He may cut it down for fuel or shelter when need arises. Even so, let him remember that the law never fails to avenge infraction, as when wanton deforestation has ruined a climate or a soil, or when the importation of rabbits for a cheap supply of food has created a plague. The wise application based on observation and experience of the law of Thelema is to work in conscious harmony with evolution. Experiments in creation involving variation from existing types are lawful and necessary. Their value is to be judged by their fertility as bearing witness to their harmony with the course of nature towards perfection. It is writing like these that help me realize that for me, I need to be responsible for my actions. I cannot simply do anything I want without thinking. There are repercussions to my actions. That goes for all of us. But as for myself, I have a nature that is best suited for service when opportunity arises, but on such ways as in conformity with my nature and the law of Thelema. I try, and sometimes do good things, and sometimes try, and though I had good intentions, bang my head once or twice. While we make mistakes, hopefully we learn from them. That is really all I'm saying. If you're new to Magick or Thelema, welcome. If you've been around for a while, I'm glad you're here. In either case, I hope that my lengthily answered question, why I do magic, and especially why did I choose Thelema, leads each of you to your own private contemplation. Better yet if it spread the light amongst others in your doing so. Love is the law, love under will.